You guys ready for chapter 1100? I know Zoro is ready. Look at him, ladies and gentlemen. His eyes are red with bloodlust. At least one of them is. Okay, but I'm sure his other eye, if he still has it, does Zoro even still have the other eye? What's up with that? Remember right after the time skip, everybody was like, man, he's gonna open that eye, it's gonna be like the Sharingan, right? And then, like, there was a bunch of theories about it, and after a while, they all just kind of like, it's probably nothing. It's been like almost like, oh god, since the time skip, it's been like almost 500 something chapters now, and he still haven't opened his eye. Wait for it, he's gonna open the eye, he's still gonna open the eye, ladies and gentlemen. What are we talking about? Oh yeah, One Piece chapter 1100 titled, Thank You, Bonnie. Oh, this is gonna be, I can't take another one of these, okay? Like, just by reading the title of the chapter, Thank You, Bonnie. Like, oh man, this is gonna be some tragic crap right here. Kuma's gonna get turned into an emotionless cyborg, and he's gonna write a letter to his daughter like, I love you, and I'm always there by your side because I'm not gonna be your dad anymore. I don't know if I can take it. Alright, well anyway, the cover page is cool. It's Usopp and Sanji. You don't see a lot of Usopp Sanji cover spreads, okay? This might actually be the only one, I'm not really sure. There's a lot of cover spreads. It's actually kind of nice. You have Sanji hanging outside, you know, they're having a little bit of a picnic, like camping, and Sanji's chopping up a bunch of vegetables, okay? So you got onions and carrots and peppers, and Usopp is there, and he's looking at all the vegetables, and he remembers the Veggie Pirates, or the old Usopp Pirates back at Syrup Village, and so he's there, like, remembering his friends. And you know what's remarkable about this? Because I don't really care about the veggies. Honestly, that was one of the things that I was glad they omitted from the live action. You know, the little kids running around Syrup Village. I'm like, yeah, you didn't need them to the story. But what I love about this is Usopp came from such humble origins, okay? 3 years ago, Usopp was just a small town kid living out in the middle of nowhere, really, in the East Blue, running around playing pirate with a bunch of his friends. They were building like forts out in the woods, and Usopp was like practicing with his slingshot and going over to Kaya's mansion to tell stories. 3 years ago, that's what Usopp's life was. And now he is a member of a Yonko crew. He went from small town country boy to God in less than 3 years. That's a pretty good record, I have to say. So Usopp remembers his friends. He remembers Carrot and Onion and Pepper. By the way, the kid that is Pepper, I thought his name was always Apple because his hair kind of looked like an apple. No, it's Pepper. It's like Pimon or something like that. So there you go. That's a little cover spread. It looked kind of neat. Okay, and then I guess Usopp and Sanji go camping. It's like, all right. So, leaving off from the last chapter, I'll give you a brief recap on that one because it takes place a little bit later after that. So Vegapunk meets with Kuma and Bonnie, or rather, Kuma and Bonnie go to Egghead, the brand new Egghead. It's not really Egghead yet. It's like Marine Laboratory number 8 or something. And Vegapunk goes through the whole thing of like, all right, I can cure Bonnie using stem cell technology, but it's going to be very expensive. How about in lieu of payment, you give me some of your DNA, Kuma, so that I could create my Pacifista project, okay? So that was what the deal was, that Vegapunk made Kuma. There was nothing in there about turning Kuma into PX0 and removing his humanity. All that Vegapunk wanted from Kuma was just some of his DNA. In order to synthesize these cybernetic warriors, these Terminators, the Pacifistas. And the name for them came up in the last chapter. It's like, oh, I've always just been a pacifist. And it's like, Quasar, well, I'll call them the Pacifista then. And that was it. That was it. It was a good ending. Unfortunately, Saturn was listening to the call, and he's like, oh, no. We're not having Kuma. All the stuff that's happened to Kuma, we're not giving him a happy ending. I am gonna make damn sure that Kuma has the most tragic ending out of any character in this story by any means necessary. So Saturn is just like, oh, no. No, it's looking like Bonnie's illness is gonna be cured, and all that Kuma had to do was give a couple of blood samples. Oh, no. We can make this more tragic. So the government sends Kizaru over to the island, all right? So this is a little bit after the conversation, after Vegapunk and Bonnie arrive there, Kizaru shows up. Now remember, this is 4 years ago, right after the Punk Hazard explosion, and Kizaru even mentions, it's just like, whoa, yeah, this place is a lot colder than Punk Hazard. Remember, the original island that they built Egghead on was a winter island. It was Vegapunk's island aircon system that was able to change the weather to whatever he wanted. It was set to like a summer island, like tropical setting when they were there, but, you know, Vegapunk could set the temperature to anything, but it's still a winter island at this point. Also, keep in mind, Punk Hazard originally, before it was half a, you know, magma wasteland and half an Arctic wasteland, before that, it was just a regular wasteland after the explosion, but before all of that, it was like a jungle island, okay? It was like a summer island that was like full of like rainforest and stuff, and then the explosion happened, okay? Well, anyway, Kizaru arrives here. Now, he is an admiral at this point, except back in the day, Kizaru liked to wear a hat. He's dressing in a very similar way than he does now, except he has his pinstripe suit, his black pinstripe suit, and also he has a different checkered kind of tie, and he's wearing a hat. Back in the day when he was bringing Arlong in, so back when the Sun Pirates were doing their thing, back when Kizaru was a vice admiral, he wore a hat back then too. I bring this all up because back in the day, Kizaru was known for his fashionable hats. Old hat-wearing Kizaru, they used to call him. You could always rely on Kizaru to wear a hat. Everybody in the Marines would always say that. And then one day, Kizaru woke up and he couldn't find his hat. He lost it and he never wore another one since. Tragic story. True story, I will say. Anyway, so Kizaru arrives, and Kizaru and Vegapunk seem to have a former relationship, like they've met and, you know, talked before, and they're kind of friends, because, you know, Kizaru's like, oh, I'm sorry, Vegapunk, I'm here on business, kind of a thing. You know, I don't want to, but, you know, the higher-ups and all that. He mentions that, you probably should have checked the lab for any kind of surveillance and like wiretapping, because yeah, there were Den Mushi all over the lab. That whole conversation where Vegapunk made a deal with a pirate, basically, that would be Kuma, was transferred directly to the Gorosei. So Vegapunk is there and he's just like, oh gee willikers, I knew I should have checked on something. Also just goes to show just how fearful and wary the government was of Vegapunk, because even when Vegapunk was moving from Punk Hazard to this new place, they're like, all right, we got to make sure to keep an eye on him, like eyes and ears on Vegapunk, because he is so smart, he could very easily go and build an army of robots to fight us at some point. So we want to make sure we know exactly what he's doing at all time. Also, the fact Vegapunk's kind of naive with some stuff, that doesn't really help, okay? Well, anyway, we do see the Marines that arrived with Kizaru. One of them is, in fact, Drake. This is back when Drake, I don't know if he was a rear admiral at this point yet. He might have just been a couple ranks below that. Maybe he was a Commodore, maybe he was a captain, but this was before Drake effectively was a traitor, red flag Diaz Drake, and went off to be a pirate. Of course, that was all a cover for being a member of SWORD, but we see Drake here 4 years ago when he was still a Marine, so his defection occurred, you know, rather recently, you know, compared to the rest of, like, well, actually, you know, yeah, all the supernovas kind of became big at the same time, really. I mean, that was the whole point of the supernovas. They rose to prominence around the same time that the Straw Hats did, and they all made it to Sabaody at the same time, right? You have a Den Mushi being placed in front of Vegapunk, and Kuma is also there. Kizaru is there. Bonnie is not. She's probably off playing with Sentomaru right now, so she doesn't hear this conversation. And Saturn gets on the Den Mushi and begins to go over everything with Vegapunk and Kuma. And he's just like, all right, well, here's the deal, Vegapunk. You were just brokering a deal with a pirate that has a bounty of 296 million. That's Kuma. So confirming his bounty. That was his last bounty before it was frozen and he became a warlord. He's like, listen, now you could say that you were ignorant of this, like, oh gee, Quasar, I didn't know he was a pirate. Or you could just say you don't care. Like, I don't care if he was a pirate. For the furtherance of science, I shall help him. Saturn's like, you can say whatever you want to justify that. It doesn't matter. I'm your boss, the government. You are a marine scientist. You are a government scientist. Yeah, we're not going to allow this, okay? Also, the idea of making the pacifistas in the image of Kuma would be like a slap in the face to the government. You're taking a pirate, turning a pirate into the face of the Marines' new, like, robot defense program. That's not cool. We're not going to allow that, okay? Now, Saturn doesn't just scrap the whole deal right away, because you get the impression Saturn has the power to do that. He could just be like, you know what, Kizaru, kill Kuma, kill Bonnie, you know, make Vegapunk know his place, and then call it a day. He could have easily have done that. However, Saturn is the kind of sadistic son of a bitch that he knows exactly where there's an advantage to be had here. He's not going to scrap the whole thing. He's like, we need to change the terms a bit. So here's the deal. Here are the new terms as Saturn is relaying to Kuma. He's like, I'm going over Vegapunk's head. I'm Vegapunk's boss. I'm a member of the Gorosei. I'm like everybody's boss, basically. Okay, so here are the terms. If you disagree with these, we could just kill you, kind of thing. So here are the new deals. First, Kuma, you must agree to become one of the 7 warlords of the sea. Okay? Turns out this is actually a great time for that because there's actually a current opening. One of the warlords was defeated the other day thanks to a rookie named Ace. So let's pause for a moment here and think about this. Okay, so this is 4 years ago. This is about 1 year after Ace left Fuchsia to go be a pirate. So he established the Spade Pirates with Mass Deuce. You can read all about it in the Ace light novels. There's 2 of them, right? And so at one point we know that Ace was offered the position of warlord. It was actually in one of the books that Vice Admiral Draw was the one that kind of like, hey Ace, you want to be a warlord? And Ace is like, no. And then him and Draw fight. Draw was an idiot because he used a pair of flamethrowers against Ace. I know, right? I know, what a dipshit, right? Yeah, it's kind of funny. So anyway, yeah, that happened. But anyway, we knew that. We knew Ace was offered a position, but we didn't know that Ace took out one of the warlords. And by took out, what do we mean? Do we mean he killed one of the warlords or just defeated them? We don't know. Knowing Oda, I'm assuming that this warlord might be still alive, but we have no idea who this would be. All right, it's actually kind of interesting because it's never been mentioned. Like, there's never been a character that showed up that like, I used to be a warlord of the sea, I had everything, and then Porcus D. Ace took it away from me. So Ace could have just killed the guy. That's why we don't hear about him anymore. Or Oda hasn't introduced him into the story yet. Maybe he'll show up later as a vendetta against Luffy or somebody. He'll be like, your brother took everything away from me, Straw Hat Luffy. And Luffy's like, yeah, well, I've never met you, so I don't know who you are. You know, Ace fought you a long time ago. All right, cool. I don't know what to tell you. So, yeah, we don't know who this individual is, so feel free to, you know, theorize on who this warlord was before Kuma joined. The idea is also, by the way, we find out Kuma is the most recent addition to the warlords prior to the start of the story. So at the beginning of the story, when the 7 warlords were Kuma, Hancock, Mihawk, Jinbei, Doflamingo, Moria, and Crocodile. I got them all on the first take. There we go. Out of all of them, Kuma was the most recent addition. Okay, all the other warlords we will see in this chapter, and they are the ones that were there from the very beginning. Okay, so from the beginning of the story. Okay, probably some other versions of the warlords that existed prior to this. We don't know how long the system has been in place, but anyway. So there's already a vacancy, so Saturn is like, hey, I'm going to take this opportunity. Now, Kuma, if you were to become a warlord, then we turn you into the symbol of peace using a bunch of Terminator robots. That would be different. So this is not a thing that I feel like Kuma would have turned down. I mean, he's not going to turn down any of this because it's, you know, saving Bonnie, but it's like, okay, well, I become a warlord, that means I get to, you know, I guess go around the world, fight pirates. I mean, I'm answering to the world government. That's not great, but I still am ostensibly making the world a better place by fighting pirates that are doing a lot of harm. So, you know, I don't think this would be that much of a detriment for Kuma here, okay? The second condition is for you to undergo procedures to become a human weapon for the Navy. And Kuma's like, all right, so you're talking about turning me into a cyborg. And it's like, yes, we are. You already have all the required traits to be an effective warlord. So you'll become the paragon of fear for pirate scum in the world. Basically, they're trying to do the super soldier Captain America shit with Kuma right here, right? They're like, okay, you're already super strong. You're a buccaneer. You have all this power. We're going to make you even stronger, Kuma. We're going to turn you into... Like, this is the best situation for Saturn in the world government, because a lot of the other warlords, they don't really play by the rules. Like Mihawk and Boa, they kind of do whatever they want. Doflamingo is just straight up evil. Moria's lazy as shit. So when it comes to this opportunity, Saturn is just like, you know what? huh, we have Kuma right where we want him, like hook, line, and sinker. You know, he wants Bonnie to be cured. We could get so much juice out of this apple, as it were, right? We can wring him right through. Okay, tell you what, you're gonna become a warlord for us, and then we're gonna modify your body as much as we want, and we're gonna turn you into the symbol of the government's raw physical might against the pirates of the world. And if you disagree, we're not gonna heal your daughter, so they have Kuma pretty much, you know, up shit creek without a paddle at this point. Kizaru even chimes in here, and he's just like, I second that, you know? It would be pretty cool to have you as part of the Navy, all right? And so Vegapunk is just like, shut up, Kizaru, you're not part of this conversation. And then Saturn is just like, now, the third point. And it's like, oh my god, there's still more? Now, listen, up until now, I mean, Saturn's a dick at this point, but it's nothing like, okay, be a warlord and we're gonna modify your body around, give you a cool robot arm, fire lasers, and then maybe Kuma's like, all right, I mean, I didn't really want to do that, you know, that's not cool and everything, but, you know, if it's for Bonnie, sure. But now we have the third stipulation. You must agree to give up your free will and your sense of individuality. And that's right there where Vegapunk gets enraged. Like, one of the most pissed off Vegapunks we've seen so far. Like, he's got a giant head vein. His head vein goes all the way into the stratosphere, ladies and gentlemen. He's like, no, absolutely not! I will not do that! That's tantamount to killing a human being, Saturn! How dare you! This is because none of the other warlords follow orders. Yeah, that's because of it. It's because, like, hey, Mihawk, go over there and do that. And Mihawk is just like, I don't feel like it. Boa, come and help us. I shall not. It's like, Moria, come and do something. I'm asleep. Let a zombie do it or something. See, that's the warlord system, which there's problems with that already. But here, Saturn is like, nah, okay, if we're gonna get another warlord, if we're gonna keep this system around, this next one is going to be completely 110% loyal to us, okay? And so Vegapunk is refusing. He's like, I'm not doing this. If you snuff out all of the humanity in a cyborg, then you just have a robot with no soul, no humanity, no ambitions, no dreams, or anything. You have just an object at that point and nothing more. You know, do you really expect me to murder a human being? This is so messed up. Just because he wants his daughter to be cured. This is horrible. So at least Vegapunk is speaking his mind here. Saturn shuts him down, though, and it's just like, you're a military scientist. I am your boss. You have no say in the matter here. You have no right to talk back to us. We're the ones funding your entire operation. None of this would be possible without us. You know, you could not do any of this without us. These conditions must be met if this criminal wishes to save his daughter. It's a small price to pay considering how expensive and difficult that surgery will be. I have no obligation to help this girl. Saturn is like, listen, I have no reason why, like the government, the world government has no obligation to help Bonnie. All right, so if you want to help your daughter, these are the terms. Got it? That's just how it is, right? So Vegapunk is imploring Saturn, you know, please, this is murder, don't make me do this. And then that's when Kuma chimes in and he's like, do it. And Vegapunk's like, no, Kuma, no! Your story is already so tragic. It's just like, and Kuma's just like, listen. And he starts crying, he starts weeping. He's like, I'm just grateful. I'm so grateful to Saturn and the world government because now I can accept my fate as long as Bonnie is cured. Oh my god. It's the same thing like with Ginny. This actually harkens back to when Ginny was on the Den Den Mushi call, her last words to Kuma and the revolutionaries, and she said, wow, I got a horrible illness and they kicked me out of Marijois. Isn't that great? Now I can talk to you. And now Kuma's here like, well, I gotta get turned into a mindless cyborg and lose my humanity. Isn't that great? Bonnie gets to be cured. Kuma and Ginny's backstories were so damn sad, even though horrible. It was like, you'll have one good thing that'll happen at the cost of like literally everything else. Even to the point where you lose your humanity and who you even are as a person. You're like, your awareness, your autonomy is just gone. But it's like, well, I guess that's the price to pay if I gotta, you know, heal my daughter. That's what I'm gonna do, right? And I'll tell you what, man, Kuma in this backstory, from what we found out about him, I'm looking at this panel right now of Kuma just crying, just weeping tears of joy for his daughter being able to be cured finally. And man, he is such a wholesome individual. Kuma is like the most kind-hearted soul in all of One Piece. I think that might have been what Oda was going for. I'm gonna give Kuma the most kind-hearted backstory ever, but also the most tragic backstory ever. He is a martyr, essentially, in the One Piece world, in like every single definition of that word that Oda is throwing everything at him, right? Vegapunk is tears in his eyes, too, for what he now has to do to Kuma. Kizaru just kind of like takes his hat and just kind of like, he asks him, how long will it take for all this stuff to get done? And Vegapunk's like, okay, well, Bonnie's surgery, that'll take about 6 months with the stem cells, but it's going to be about another year for her to be completely cured to the point where she can walk outside and she can be in light. So it's about a year and a half. Kuma's surgery, on the other hand, I mean, we can't do all of it at once. We can't replace his entire body with robotics at once, so that'll take 2 years minimum, probably longer, though, with everything. Saturn's like, all right, I see. How can we trust Kuma to still be, obedient after his daughter is cured? What's stopping him from just running away? And Kuma's like, I have no intention of running. I am literally giving you everything you want from me. I'm literally giving you my humanity. And Saturn's like, no. Don't buy it. I didn't live to be over 800 years old by being trustful. It's like, no. Your daughter is our only leverage. The only reason you're going to do any of this is because we have your daughter. So even after her treatment is cured, her treatment is complete, she is still going to be in our custody, under government watch, and you are not going to be allowed to see her. Okay, and that's the way this is going to go, or we're not going to perform the surgery once again. Saturn is like, we hold all the cards here. Not even all the cards. We have the whole deck. All right, you have nothing, Kuma. All right, everything that happens here is basically just like, yeah, all right, we'll cure Bonnie. That's like an afterthought for Saturn. Because Saturn is also just like, I don't have to make a deal with you. I'm a member of the Gorosei. Honestly, you just be happy we don't kill Bonnie right now or hold her captive and then we just make you a cyborg. We could do that too. That's always on the table. But he's going by it this way, probably like Occam's razor, the way that's like the least resistance. But Saturn could just order all of Cypherpole or the Marines or Kizaru to do some duplicitous shit at any moment, right? Yeah, Vegapunk gets enraged again. He's just like, but that means that Kuma won't even see Bonnie even after she's cured? And so he's like, I don't care. His modifications will commence immediately. It'll be an ongoing process. As he starts his tenure as warlord and helps the government take out the sea. So as the operation is ongoing, they can't do everything at once. So as Kuma gets like, oh, you have a cyborg arm now, get out there and show the world you're strong, and then come back, get some more modifications, now go out and fire lasers. That's basically the idea here, okay? And Saturn also says that if Kuma breaks any of his word during this whole situation, Bonnie will be made into a slave at Marijois, and that'll be the end of that. So Kuma has every intention of holding up his end of the bargain. He's like, I'm not gonna... All right, fine, just don't... I have one stipulation. Once again, Saturn could have just been like, I could hear it, but I'm not under any obligation to give that to you. Once again, we have the whole deck of cards here. But Kuma does say, listen, just, can you give me one thing here? Not even me. Can you give my daughter can you at least let her go home to Sorbet and live in the church where, our family home? Can you at least allow that? So she doesn't wake up without her father here in a soulless government facility. And Vegapunk's like, hey, soulless? I didn't mean that. It's okay. But he's like, can you at least give me that much here, okay? And Saturn just kind of thinks about it for a moment. He's just like, yeah, I guess. It makes really no difference where she is, in the Grand Line, New World, Paradise, or in the South Blue. It doesn't really matter. We're going to have government agents watch over her. We can pretty much set that up all over anywhere in the world. We are the world government after all. So it's like, it makes no difference as long as she's kept under, watchful eye of the government while this is all going on. He's like, looks like we have an interesting 2 years ahead of us, okay? So the call with Saturn ends, and then Kuma goes outside to go see Bonnie. She was playing with Sentomaru. She calls him a weirdo. He's like, hey, Dad, I was playing with this weirdo over here named Sentomaru. He's got a big battle axe. And Sentomaru's like, oh, come on, that was so mean. And so Kuma's like, hey, guess what, Bonnie? We're going to be staying here in Vegapunk's magical chocolate factory for the next 6 months. And Bonnie's like, oh, are you going to stay here with me? And he's like, yes, I'll be here with you every day for the next 6 months. months. And Bonnie's like, yay, I get to spend time with Dad. Because remember, you know, he's been gone for so long, traveling the world, trying to find a cure, being a pirate and everything like that. So this is really nice that Bonnie now gets to spend the next 6 months with her dad. Of course, you know, he doesn't tell her that this is the last 6 months that he's going to be able to see her after that. He's not going to be seeing her ever again because he will be a warlord and he'll be, like, not allowed. And if he does break that promise, then she could die or be thrown into slavery, you know, so they don't tell Bonnie that. They're just like, oh, don't worry. You get to, yeah, we'll have a great time. We'll have a sleepover. It'll be fantastic. Okay, great. So they're going around the lab. We see Vegapunk, you know, writing away all the ideas and everything he's got. He's like, oh my goodness, Quasar, I have all the ideas flowing from me. I just wish there were 5 more of my bodies. Yes, I'll make one like a robot, and another one like a sexy woman, and another one like a sexy woman, and then one of the sexy women will betray me. Oh, this is ridiculous. All these ideas. You know, one of them will have a helmet like that popular French group, Daft Punk. Yes, all the ideas. So this was before all the satellites came to be. So Vegapunk, also you have to understand at this point Vegapunk is probably way more stressed out because all the stuff that the satellites did for him kind of broke up everything into 6. Now it's all compressed into one brain. So that brain is probably like pumping a lot of blood and he's really stressed out, probably has a lot of anxiety. After he split his consciousness into 6 different people, he was able to calm down a little bit, right? But, you know, he may be a little bit more stressed out here. There are people helping him at Egghead. He has a staff, but he's the brains of the operation here, very, very literally and figuratively. So, you know, he's like all writing out giant piles of paper, and his like lab assistants are like, oh yes, Dr. Vegapunk, we'll get right to it. Oh my goodness. You know, so satellites haven't happened yet, right? So we have a montage. Happy Kuma, Bonnie, 6 months of the last time that Kuma's gonna be able to see his daughter. Montage. Let's cue up some 80s music. Da, 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 da. I did not live in the 80s. I don't know what 80s music sounds like. Da, 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 da. So, we see Kuma's cybernetic modifications getting like cables and, you know, stuff grafted to him and everything like that. Bonnie undergoes her surgery. We see Bonnie playing with Sentomaru. We see Bonnie draw an adorable little, an adorable drawing of Kuma, which I'm thinking I'm gonna make the thumbnail for this video. So this isn't a spoiler. If you see this in the thumbnail, you're not gonna be like, oh, Tekking, you spoiled the new chapter. Kuma became a really poorly drawn cartoon character. Oh my goodness. So, we see that, and you know, it is nice. They even look like maybe they help build up Egghead a little bit. We see a cargo freighter arriving with a bunch of supplies and building materials. On the side of the cargo ship, we see with my giant tablet, I can enhance. You can't see it, but enhance. We have Umit cargo ship. So Umit, deep sea current Umit, was one of the heads of the underground, the underworld that we saw during the Tea Party way back at Whole Cake Island, okay? So that was Umit. He was the head of like all of the different shipping companies in the One Piece world, because merchant ships and cargo vessels, they exist in the One Piece world. We don't see them that much, but they are a thing. It is an industry. It's a probably multiple billions of berry industry, and Umit is kind of the head of all of that, and he's also a member of the underworld, okay? So we see a cargo ship, we see Kuma and Bonnie, we see Kuma lifting up like a giant pipe, so they're probably helping to build actual like Egghead Island up to what it would be today. They don't finish, but you know, they build it up a bit. So 6 months go by, they have a pizza party together. Oh my god, they get a bunch of pizza. We see Kizaru and Bonnie and Kuma and Sentomaru and Vegapunk all hanging out, eating pizza, drinking like beer and juice and everything like that. They all do the sun god Nika dance. They're all dancing around. Even Kizaru's doing the dance like, oh, this is nice. This is fun. I like this. Hey, where did my hat go? It's like, that's where he lost his hat. You know, a lot of people have been saying, I wonder if this is, you know, foreshadowing that Kizaru is actually, because now we're finding out that Kizaru was, it wasn't just like he knew Vegapunk in the past or like he hung out at Egghead every once in a while. No, like Kizaru was essentially assigned to guard Kuma and watch over this whole operation for 6 months. So at first it was probably just a job to Kizaru, like, all right, this is my job, that's what the Gorosei ordered, I have to stay here and watch you guys, you know, just make sure everything, you know, you hold up your end of the bargain. But after a few days and weeks of guarding them, you know, Bonnie probably came up to Kizaru and like, hey,
can I see you do a laser show? And Kizaru's like, zip, 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 yay! And do you want to come have a pizza party with us? And Kizaru's like, okay. You know, and so they end up having, they're a little bit of a family, you know, it's actually really nice. Vegapunk, Sentomaru, Bonnie. Bonnie's just eating like a massive slice of pizza. And you see Kuma and you see Kizaru there. They're all having a good time. Man, it's fantastic. So, half a year goes by, 6 months go by, Vegapunk is giving Bonnie a checkup, and he's like, yes, yeah, she's took to the treatment rather well, so I think she can now begin the recovery period. So at this point, what's going to happen is Kuma is going to take her, is going to escort Bonnie back to Sorbet, back to the church, where the government is going to establish, you know, they're going to watch over her from now on, and then that's going to be the moment where Kuma's going to leave, and he's never going to see his daughter again. So we see that Vegapunk's lab has been built up a little bit. We see that, you know, on Egghead they have that giant like soda bottle that's like puffing out the clouds, you know, for the labosphere. Where we're seeing the construction of that now. And so Kuma's like, thank you so much for everything, Dr. Vegapunk. They're getting ready to leave. And Bonnie is just like, yeah, and then after I'm all better, then we can come back here and visit you. And Vegapunk's like, oh, yes, of course, Quasar. Come back and visit me anytime. Well, she will. At some point, she will definitely do that. Trying to kill you in the process, but, you know, you could sort all that out later, okay? So we go back to the kingdom of Sorbet. They're back at the church here. Connie is there, the Queen Dowager, and she's like, oh, do we have to watch little Bonnie again? Oh, okay. And so Bonnie's basically calling her Grandma Connie. Like, Granny Connie, it's been so long, you know? So, you know, Bonnie is like, so oblivious to everything going on here. I mean, she's a child, you know what I mean? So it's like, they're not telling her any of the horrible things that are overarching over all of this, like Kuma becoming a warlord, you know, all that horrible stuff. He's gonna lose his humanity, not gonna be able to see his daughter anymore. Like, it makes it all the more sad because Bonnie is like, she doesn't know any of this. She's just like, yay, I'm gonna be cured now. Just barely, by the way, because it was like, I think she was, 4 years ago, she would have been 8, and so 6 months have gone by, and then another year has to go by. That means she would have been cured at like 9.5 years old, so just shy of turning 10, okay? And so I would assume as when she does turn 10, that is when she leaves to go out to sea and begins the Bonnie Pirates and ends up eventually at Sabaody, okay? So we see Gyogo there, and we see all the other all the old-timers from the village showing up, and Kuma's there. He's like, oh, thank you, Granny Connie, and I'll leave Bonnie in your hands. You know, I'm still a pirate after all, so I can't stay in the village. He's also not telling any of the, he's not telling Connie or any of the old-timers exactly what's going on or what his deal was. Kuma picks up Bonnie. This is the last words he's going to be able to say to his daughter. And he says, I don't think I'm going to be back for at least a year. And then Bonnie's like, what? Oh, that long? He's like, yeah, don't worry. I'll write you tons of letters. That's one thing Saturn did not forbid. He forbid Kuma from seeing his daughter, did not forbid him from writing letters. But of course, after Kuma becomes a PX0 and has his humanity removed, he's not even going to be able to do that anymore. But he will at least be able to write letters to his daughter, okay? The next time I see you, we'll both be able to sail the seas and reach the horizon. And so he's like, oh, I want to travel to all sorts of places. And Kuma's like, I'd love to take you to all the places, Bonnie. Yeah, we're gonna travel the world. Yeah, we're gonna be great. He's like, Dad, why do you always cry whenever we're talking about what we're going to do in the future? I'm just so happy, Bonnie. My life has just been a non-stop cavalcade of awesome. Everything's been amazing. I just can't wait for more of it. Yes. Oh, God. At this point, a sexy nurse walks in. Hello, nurse. Okay, so this is Alpha, who is a member of CP8, which I'm really excited for multiple reasons. But more importantly than anything, we're finally seeing a member of Cypherpool 8. I mean, I guess we saw some members at Vegapunk's lab that were captured, you know, and thrown into the prison cell, but this is like the first named character of Cypherpool 8. Thought she was Khalifa for a moment there because they look very similar. Khalifa was the sexy secretary. Alpha is the sexy nurse. However, no, Khalifa at this point, along with Lucci, Kaku, and Blueno, they are all undercover at Water 7. That is happening right now, okay? So I guess she has a twin named Alpha, and she's a member of CP8. Now, CP8 is obviously one lower than CP9, but remember, CP9 was supposed to be like their secret operative force, like that the general public did not know about. CPs 1 through 8 were the actual organization, like everybody knew that those existed. You know, Cypherpole 1 handled the most, you know, like small kind of dealings. They didn't really deal with a lot of any like big things. I would imagine Cypherpole 1 would deal with stuff along the lines of like, hey, we hear on some random kingdom some people are saying some shit about the world government. Just go and check. And they're like, okay. And it goes all the way up to Cypherpole 8, which receive the most, you know, high-profile kind of stuff, you know. Now, it goes up one higher to Cypherpole 9, and then Cypherpole 0 is a special organization specifically for the Tenryubito. But in terms when it comes to the actual agency, sending a member of Cypherpole 8 to handle this, because this is a really important thing, because this is the leverage that is going to be used to keep Kuma in line. The sad thing is, out of all of this, they don't even need to do any of this. Kuma would have done exactly what they would have told him to do without having anything involved with, like, you know, watching over Bonnie and having like a knife at her throat or anything like that. Kuma would have still done it. But it's like Saturn's like, no, we don't trust you. We're gonna make double damn sure. So Alpha shows up with a bunch of other doctors. Now, here's the thing. I'm assuming, just like how Khalifa, Kaku, Lucci, when they were undercover at Water 7, like, Lucci actually learned to become a shipwright. Same thing with Kaku. They were professional shipwrights, and they had the skills. I would imagine Alpha does have the skills to be, like, a doctor and know how to administer medicine and stuff like that, and the doctors with her are also government agents, but they still know what they're doing. It's not like they're just like, oh, we're not really nurses or doctors. We're actually assassins. We know nothing about medicine. They do know enough for the sake of the mission, okay? So the point is they will be able to watch over Bonnie for the remainder of her treatment and her recovery. They will be able to help her with that. She even says, you know, I'm a nurse. The doctor ordered me to take care of Bonnie. I'll take her temperature, make sure she takes her medicine, monitor for any changes. Like, she can do all of that. But she doesn't forget to tell Kuma exactly, like, the status quo of how this is all going to go down, all right? So she's like, nice to meet you, Bonnie. Oh, aren't you adorable? That's great. And then she turns over to Kuma and is just like, you know, she picks up like a little rock on the ground. He's like, now don't you forget, Kuma. Like, she crushes the rock. He's like, a child's life is such a fragile thing. You know, she could just trip and fall one day and then just, what could happen? So she threatens Kuma to be like, if you step out of line, if you don't listen to the government, I can kill Bonnie without a second thought. Okay, I am going to be right by her side at all times, okay? They also are building up a giant partition wall around the church and like a big guardhouse, so nobody can come in and out without their approval first. So they're really taking over the situation. So Bonnie will be home, but, you know, it's going to be a government facility, basically, that no one's like allowed to visit her without being, you know, like screened first, okay? Kuma sits down and he's like, well, Kuma whispers to Alpha first so Bonnie can't hear. He's like, listen, I understand. I'm not going to come back. You don't have to worry about that. Bonnie, I'm so glad you were born. And that was basically the last words that Kuma said to his daughter. And that's also the title of the chapter. Thank you, Bonnie. I'm so glad you were born. And then he walks out of the church, and everybody's like, you know, Connie's there. He's like, oh, take care, you know, everyone be safe, all that, I'll see you soon. And Kuma's like, so he walks out, right? The pirates of the world were utterly shocked when the infamous tyrant Bartholomew Kuma suddenly became an absolute obedient warlord of the sea, okay? So now we're getting flash forwards to the future now, probably like 3 years ago, 2 years ago, before the beginning of the story, where we have all the different warlords reacting to Kuma joining their ranks. So first we see Doflamingo. We have Sugar taking a newspaper and be like, hey, master, look, there's a new warlord. And so Doflamingo looks at it and he's like, ha ha, the tyrant, eh? Looks like a new evil son of a bitch has joined the warlords. I'm Doflamingo! Ha ha ha! Alright, so that's Doflamingo's reaction. Then we have Crocodile. We see Robin as Miss All Sunday in the background. She's like, so what do you think, Crocodile? What do you think, Mr. Zero, about this new warlord? And then Crocodile's like, I don't really care. Have you taken care of those idiots that saw the rain ship yet? The rain-making ship, by the way, that was, it was called Full, like Full, that was the name of the ship. In the English, I think it was Downpour. It was a ship that had a giant, like, smokestack coming out of it where you would put the dance powder in and it would create rain. And so eventually the Marines, like Hina and Smoker, ended up commandeering it and capturing it at the end of Alabasta. So I guess at this point it was under construction and some people in Alabasta saw it, and Robin probably had them murdered. Robin has killed a lot of people in the past. That's not even debatable, really. She's an assassin. She's really good. As Nico Robin put it herself in the 4Kids One Piece dub, she's really good at rub-outs. Yep. So then we have Mihawk's reaction. Mihawk's reaction is just looking at the paper while there's an explosion behind him. So pretty much every single day with Mihawk. We have not a warlord, but we have Alvida and Kobe. Because at this point, Kobe, it was 4 years ago that Kobe accidentally wandered aboard Alvida's ship, and so we see them there. It's actually really fascinating to see Oda draw, like, pre-time skip Alvida at, like, chapter 1100. You know what I mean? It's like 1100 chapters later. It's crazy. So Kobe's there, and he's like, oh boy, gotta make sure to clean the floor. And Alvida's like, wow, this new... I don't know what that was. Wow! Wow, this new warlord's as big as Whitebeard. I wonder if he's stronger than me. What do you think, Kobe? Oh yeah, Vita, don't worry. I know he's not as strong as you. I mean, I know you have a bounty of like 5 million and he has a bounty of like 296, but whatever. What was that, Kobe? Nothing, Alvida. Just da-da-da. You know what's also, I love that Oda depicted this because it goes to show, like, back during the East Blue, none of the pirates really mentioned, like, any of the Yonko back then, you know what I mean? They kind of did, like, they mentioned Mihawk, who was a warlord, but, like, you never heard, like, Morgan talking about, like, I'm Captain Morgan of the Marines, I'm even stronger than the warlord, I mean, not the warlord, the Yonko Kaido or something like that, right? Because Oda maybe hadn't thought that far ahead at that point, didn't know all the characters. So it's nice to go back and to see what was Alvida, who is a small-time pirate in the East Blue, what was her opinion of the greater world? Because they, of course, all knew about the Yonko. If you read the newspapers, you know who the 4 Yonko are, you know who the warlords are, you know what their bounties are. Like, that's not a secret. Like, we found out the Yonko bounties recently in the story, like a couple hundred chapters ago. Alvida, at this point, would just look in the paper and be like, Shanks's bounty is, like, where's Shanks at? 4.48 billion or something like that. It's like, wow, but I'm still stronger, right? So it is cool to see that. We see Ace. At this point, Ace is a member of Whitebeard's crew, so I'm assuming he defeated the Warlord while he was still the captain of the Spade Pirates, and then where we've skipped over 6 months and then even more time after that, so at this point now, it's like a year before the start of the story, so at this point in the interim, Ace has joined the Whitebeard Pirates, had the little bit of a thing where he's trying to murder Whitebeard and then eventually joined, and see, he seems on friendly terms now with Marco and Whitebeard and everybody. Blackbeard's there in the background, of course. And Jinbei's also visiting the Whitebeard crew. And so Ace is like, so they finally found a replacement. That's great news, Jinbei. And he's just like, you're the last person, Ace, that I would have expected you to say that because you're the one that killed the last guy. But whatever. He's a former king. This is Jinbei speaking. He's a former king. This is on top of reigning king we already have in our ranks. That's, Doflamingo, who is the current king of Dressrosa. So it's like, the pirate world sure is changing. Then we see Boa at Amazon Lily, and you see Gloriosa behind her. It's like, Princess, Empress, you need to know about the new warlord, Kuma. And then Boa is just like, that business does not affect us. I follow no man's orders in this world. And so, Gloriosa, Granny Neon, is like, you should still keep up with the times. Read the paper. You damn Gen P, Generation Pirate Era, you damn... It's like, I don't know. But anyway, we have Moria, who's asleep. Moria's just in bed, and he's just like, the pawpaw fruit. What kind of an ability is that? That's stupid. Kishi. And Perona's kind of like dancing around in her ghost form, and just like, well, he is already a warlord, so I guess he's strong enough to make the cut, right, Moria? And Moria's like, whatever. Where are my zombies? Have they made me? Am I king of the pirates yet? When is that gonna happen? Make more zombies, Hogback. I want to be king already. Ah, yes, I will get to the zombies at once, yes. This is my Hogback voice. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to do that because I wasn't reviewing this during Thriller Bark. But I would have loved to do the Hogback voice. Yeah. All right, sounds nothing like Hogback, but you know what. We see the reaction from Dragon in that Dragon just has ellipses. He's just like, We see Sabo and Koala and Hack, though, and they're like, oh, don't the Warlords work for the government? Why did Kuma join the Warlords? I'm very confused here, right? And so we have the last page of the chapter where we have Kuma, Warlord, Tyrant, Revolutionary, Cyborg, Father, traveling the seas. And he has his own ship. He has his own Kuma, the Warlord Tyrant ship. And the sail of the ship is the drawing that Bonnie made for him. The last drawing that, like, Bonnie made for her dad. So that is Kuma's Jolly Roger, effectively, that says Kuma on it. I just want to, like, imagine that. Kuma gets orders to, like, all right, Kuma, there's a bunch of pirates over there. Go wipe them out. And Kuma's like, understood. That's what I'm here to do. And so he sails over, and the pirates see this. It's like, oh my God. That's the sigil of the tyrant, Kuma! We're all gonna die! Why does the Jolly Roger look like a bad drawing of, like, nobody ever lives to find out! Run! Oh, man, but he's traveling the seas after he just blew up a pirate ship. He's writing a letter. He's like, Dear Bonnie, I'm still at sea. I'm traveling the world, making new friends. Boom, boom! Oh, God, he's killing us all with lasers! Making new friends, you know. I'm finding new islands so that when you get, you know, cured fully, that we could go travel the world at. A lot of these fun destinations. So after he wipes out a whole pirate fleet, he gives the message to a news coup, and then that flies off. He's like, be safe now. It's a long journey. I hope everyone is back home is doing well, you know, Gyo-Gyo and Connie and old King Bulldog and all that. And then the chapter ends. This is, by the way, this is a direction I did not see coming. I think nobody saw this coming. Kuma arrives at Fuchsia Village. He's in the East Blue. He arrives at Luffy's hometown. Luffy is still there, by the way. We see a shot of Luffy running away from a tiger after pissing it off. You know, Luffy's probably poking at it with a stick, and then it woke up, and he's like, ha ha ha! So Luffy is, I mean, some time might have passed. I mean, he's either 15 or 16 years old at this point. He leaves town when he's 17. So this is like right before that. Like right before Luffy went out to sea, this event happened. So Kuma's arriving at Fuchsia, and he's getting a call from the government. He's like, Kuma, come in. We have a new command from higher up. And Kuma's like, oh, they said, what's your location? And he's like, I'm in the East Blue. What are my orders? So we see Kuma approaching Fuchsia, and Luffy's there. So I went back and checked this just to see. So the first time that Luffy actually sees Kuma in the story, or rather, the first time he sees a pacifista, which looks exactly like Kuma, is actually not during Thriller Bark, because remember, Luffy was unconscious the entire time Kuma confronted the Straw Hats at Thriller Bark with, like, the nothing happened moment. So Luffy wasn't there for that. He does not see Kuma's, like, what he looks like until Sabaody when they run into the PX-4. So I went back just to check what Luffy's reaction was, and the reaction of Luffy was literally like, they're walking through Sabaody, we're walking through the groves, and then the PX-4 steps out, and then Luffy's like, who are you? So I would say Luffy has never seen Kuma before. However, Kuma also has the ability to mess with memories. So, you know, it's not completely impossible that something could have happened where Luffy met Kuma here. You know, maybe Kuma found it. Kuma does know that Dragon's family is in the East, I think. Or maybe he knows the exact island. He's like, I'm going to go see Dragon's son. I don't know why Kuma would... I just randomly decided to go see Dragon's son. I don't know. But what if it's something like this? What if Kuma went to go visit Luffy, saw him, talked to him, told him a bunch of stuff about his dad, and then Kuma used his memory powers, well, not his memory powers, but his paw powers, to reject the memory bubble. And then Kuma himself took the memory bubble into himself, so it wouldn't go back to Luffy. So then that would explain why Luffy doesn't have any memory of Kuma whatsoever when they first meet. But then the PX0 is heading toward Egghead right now. What if it's a thing where the memory bubble goes back into Luffy, and Luffy's like, oh, I remember this conversation. And I was like, something, I don't know, because it's the weirdest thing. It would be very weird if, like, Kuma arrives at Fuchsia Village while Luffy is there training, but Kuma and Luffy never interact. Why else would he go there? To see Makino? Is Kuma the father of Makino's baby? All right, write that down. Write that down, that we don't know. Maybe he is. Write it down. Okay, all right, I'm making a note for that. But why else would Kuma visit Fuchsia if not to see Luffy? Ace is gone. Sabo's not there anymore. Did he go to visit Whoop Slap? He's like, I have one more thing I want to do before I become an emotionless cyborg. I want to meet the strongest man in the world. Whoop Slap. And then Whoop Slap steps out. Ah, Kuma! My old protege! It's like, I'm gonna slap you with my wooden cane! No, I really can't see of any reason why Kuma would go there unless to meet Luffy. But Luffy has no memories, which means maybe Kuma popped the memories out and kept the memory bubble on him or in him, and then he could give it back to Luffy once he arrives. Maybe he programmed that in his circuitry, like, the next time I see Luffy, give him this. Although I guess he did see Luffy during Sabaody. Why didn't he do it then? I don't know. I'm just saying, I'm just trying to figure out some explanation, because, how did this work? Like, Kuma lands at Fuchsia, and he's like, I heard Luffy is here. Dragon's son. Oh, well, didn't get a chance to see him. Bye. He's gonna meet Luffy at some point. I feel like he has to, right? So, we'll see what happens, I suppose. Yeah, anyway, that was the chapter. Really fun to see kind of the conclusion, how it kind of wrapped up everything involving what happened with Kuma. And there's a couple of more things with Bonnie, but I think we can kind of put the pieces together without actually, like, seeing it, where, Kuma, eventually, Bonnie's treatment is completed. And she wants to see her dad, and so she sneaks out of the facility and then goes off, like Gyo-Gyo and all the other people that would become her crew help her escape from Alpha and CP8, and then they get out of there and they get back on the ocean and they go away from Sorbet, and then she becomes a pirate when she becomes 10, and then, we all know what happened with the rest of Kuma from that point onward. So, yeah, and it was great to see the other warlords, like the old school warlords back in the day. So, yeah, nice to see Robin as Miss All Sunday, Ace is there, I hope his story ends well. Yeah. Well, anyway, thanks for watching the video, everybody. This will be Teching 101 signing out. In memoriam, Kizaru's hat. Never found that hat. Never did. It was his favorite hat, too.